The Warlord's arrival. The sky over Earth was not blue anymore. At first, it looked like a strange cloud. Then it grew bigger, too big. People across the planet stopped whatever they were doing. In offices, schools, streets, farms, and homes. Everyone stared at the sky. It was not a cloud. It was a ship. A giant black alien warship floated above the world like a monster. It was shaped like a blade, sharp and glowing red at the edges. Thunder cracked even though there were no clouds. Animals ran. Birds flew in panic. Something terrible had come. TVs and phones went black for 1 second. Then a face appeared, cold, green, and full of scars. His eyes were yellow. His armor looked like it was made from bones. And when he spoke, his voice echoed inside people's minds. I am General Zorak, Warlord of the Black Suns. I have destroyed 91 planets. Earth is next. People screamed. Others cried. Some dropped to their knees and prayed. Bring me your strongest leader, one person. Let them kneel before me, and I will spare your planet. Governments didn't know what to do. Scientists tried to send signals. Armies prepared their weapons, but they knew it was useless. Zorak's warship could destroy a city with one shot. Earth was not ready for this kind of war. In a small town in Arizona, a man named Ethan Cole watched the sky. He was not a soldier, not a scientist, just a simple mechanic who fixed cars in a dusty garage. But Ethan did not kneel. He looked up at the warship and whispered, "Not again." Because Ethan had seen an alien before. 5 years ago, the different alien species had attacked Earth. They didn't bring war, they brought peace. But that peace was a lie. They experimented on humans. They took people from small towns. One night, they came for Ethan's family. His wife died protecting their home. His son disappeared and never came back. Since that day, Ethan had waited. He collected broken alien tech. He taught himself how to fix it, how to understand it. He was quiet, patient, angry, but smart. Now, the real enemy had arrived. The next day, news came from the United Nations. No leader was brave enough to face Zorak. The Warlord's countdown had begun. -48 hours left before Earth would be destroyed. Ethan drove to a military base. The guards laughed at him. You're just a mechanic. Go home. But he showed them something. A small device glowing blue. It was built from alien metal. One guard touched it and was thrown backward by a burst of energy. I want to speak to the Warlord, Ethan said. A few hours later, Ethan stood on a hill, cameras on him, the entire world watching. A blue beam came from the sky. He floated up into it. No one had volunteered. No one dared to speak. Only Ethan. Inside the alien ship, the walls were alive, moving, breathing, pulsing with red light. Zorak stood in the center, taller than any man. His voice echoed again. Kneel, human, or I will burn your world to ashes. Ethan looked up at him. His legs did not bend. No, he said. The ship went silent. Even the walls seemed to stop. Zorak's yellow eyes narrowed. You defy me. You are nothing. I'm a man, Ethan said. And that's enough. Zorak raised his hand. A beam of red fire shot out, but something strange happened. The fire stopped in midair, blocked by a blue force field around Ethan. The Warlord took a step back. What is that? He growled. Ethan held up the small device. You're not the only one with alien tech. Zorak snarled. You challenge me. I challenge you to single combat, Ethan said. No armies, no ships, just you and me. If I win, you leave Earth forever. The Warlord burst out laughing. His voice shook the ship. You dare challenge the Warlord of the Black Suns? Ethan stared straight at him. I already lost everything. What more can you take? Zorak stopped laughing. He stepped forward, eyes locked with Ethan's. Very well, human. You will fight me in the arena of suns, and there, you will beg to kneel. Suddenly, the floor opened beneath Ethan. He fell into darkness, and as he fell, the whole world watched, holding its breath. What would happen to the man who refused to kneel? The human who refused. Ethan Cole fell through endless darkness. There was no sound, no light, no ground. But then, a soft blue glow wrapped around his body, slowing his fall. The strange device in his pocket, alien tech he had built from broken parts over years, activated on its own. It hummed like it was alive. He landed gently, but not on Earth. Ethan stood up and looked around. He was inside a large round chamber made of smooth black stone. The ceiling was high, covered with glowing alien symbols. The air smelled like metal and dust. He was completely alone. No guards, no traps, just silence. Then a voice echoed from above. "This is the last human who refuses to kneel." It was Zorak's voice, but it wasn't coming from a mouth. It came from the walls. The room vibrated with his every word. He is no warrior. He is no leader. And yet, he dared to challenge me. Ethan stayed calm. He had lived through worse. Suddenly, the wall in front of him turned into a screen. A video played. It showed Earth, cities, forests, oceans. Then it showed Zorak's past battles. Planets burned. Alien kings knelt. Some exploded into dust when they refused. The last image was of Ethan standing tall, refusing to bow. Zorak's face appeared on the screen again. "You interest me, human. So I offer you a second chance. Kneel now, or enter the arena of suns and die slowly." Ethan didn't blink. "Send me to the arena." The screen disappeared. The floor beneath him began to move. It shifted like a giant elevator, rising fast. Light flashed around him. Strange alien energy filled the air, making his skin feel electric. Then, he was there. The arena of suns, a massive battlefield floating in space. The arena was shaped like a giant circle, surrounded by two glowing suns, one red, one gold. The heat was intense. The ground cracked under Ethan's boots. Huge rocks floated in the air like slow balloons. Gravity shifted with every step. And across the arena stood Zorak, now wearing a different armor, black and sharp like knives. In his hand, he held a massive blade pulsing with purple fire. "You could have lived, human. Now you will suffer." But Ethan wasn't scared, because while his body stood in the present, his mind drifted back. HFY 5 years ago. Ethan's home had been quiet once. He lived with his wife, Anna, and their 10-year-old son, Liam. They owned a small house by the hills. Life was hard but peaceful, until the first alien ship came. It was from a different race, not Zorak's, but just as cruel. They called themselves the Bringers. They came in peace, or so they said. People trusted them. Governments welcomed them. Then people started disappearing. Anna didn't trust them. She begged Ethan to build a signal blocker to protect their home. He did, but it was too late. One night, the sky turned green. The Bringers landed near their home. Soldiers with 4 arms and silver masks broke in. Anna fought. She was strong. She screamed, "Run," as she held the aliens back. Ethan tried to fight, but he was hit by a stun blast. The last thing he saw was Liam being dragged into a portal. When Ethan woke up, his house was gone. His wife was gone. His son was gone. From that day, Ethan became a different man. He searched junkyards, battle sites, fallen alien drones. He studied alien tech in secret. He built, failed, and built again. He had no family left, only a purpose. One day, he would get revenge. Back to the arena. Zorak charged forward, his blade slicing the air. The ground shook. Ethan dodged, barely escaping the fire trail. He rolled behind a floating rock and tapped his device. A blue shield formed around him, but it flickered. "Tech won't save you forever, human," Zorak growled. Ethan didn't answer. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to learn. Zorak attacked again, faster this time. Ethan blocked with his shield, but the force threw him into a wall. Blood ran from his lip. His device sparked. "You're too slow," Zorak said. "Too weak. Just kneel." Ethan stood up, breathing hard. "You killed my family. You think I'll bow to you?" Zorak tilted his head. "Family." Suddenly, the device on Ethan's wrist buzzed. A soft voice whispered, "Dad, is that really you?" Ethan froze. It was Liam's voice. Zorak smiled. "Ah, I see you finally heard him. What did you do to my son?" "He's alive," Zorak said. "Kept in stasis. A child of interest. If you kneel, I might let him go." Ethan's hands trembled. Liam was alive. And now, everything changed. He wasn't fighting to die anymore. He was fighting to survive, to win, to save his son. He gritted his teeth. The device glowed brighter. A second shield formed, stronger. His armor hardened. The energy inside him began to rise. Something was unlocking. Zorak noticed and stepped back. "What are you?" Ethan looked up, eyes glowing blue. "I'm a father." The secret weapon. The red and gold suns burned brighter than ever. Zorak stood still, staring at Ethan like he was seeing a ghost. The human who refused to kneel now stood taller, stronger, and something inside him had changed. Ethan's body glowed with a soft blue light. It wasn't just the shield anymore. His skin shimmered like energy flowed beneath it. The alien device he had built years ago was no longer just a tool. It was awake. The Warlord narrowed his yellow eyes. "What did you do, human?" Ethan clenched his fists. "I finished what I started." The air vibrated as the two prepared to clash again. But this time, Ethan didn't wait. He moved first, faster than before. His body left blue trails behind as he ran. Zorak barely blocked the punch. It sent shockwaves through the arena. Ethan didn't stop. He kicked, dodged, and jumped from one floating rock to another. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was something else now. Part human, part alien tech, powered by purpose and pain. Zorak roared. His blade swung like a storm, breaking rocks, melting metal. He unleashed fire beams, but Ethan's shield absorbed them, then redirected the energy back at him. The alien warlord was shocked. "That tech, it's not from any empire I know. Where did you get it?" Ethan landed hard, sliding across the ground. "I didn't find it. It found me. FLASHBACK, 2 years ago. It was deep in the Nevada desert. Ethan had been hunting for alien wreckage after a meteor shower. Everyone thought it was space junk. But Ethan felt something strange in the air that night. He followed his instincts. He walked alone for hours. Finally, he reached a crater, smoking, glowing faint blue. In the center was not a meteor. It was a broken ship, not like Zorak's. This one was beautiful, smooth, silver like moonlight. Inside, no weapons, just symbols. And one small cube. It floated above a stand. When Ethan touched it, it didn't burn him. It didn't shock him. It merged with him. He fell unconscious. When he woke up, days had passed. The cube had vanished, but now a strange mark glowed on his wrist. A circle of light. At first, he didn't understand it. But with time, the cube spoke to him. Not with words, but with feelings, memories, images. He saw visions of a lost race, ancient beings who lived in peace, who built wonders, who were wiped out by warlords like Zorak. Their tech was built not for war, but for balance. And now, that tech lived inside Ethan. Back to the arena. Zorak was breathing hard. For the first time in many years, he was bleeding. Purple blood dripped from his shoulder where Ethan had struck him. You're a mistake, Zorak growled. Your kind was never meant to rise. Ethan stepped forward. That's your fear talking. Zorak screamed in rage and slammed his blade into the ground. A shockwave spread across the arena. Ethan was thrown back, crashing into a rock. His shield flickered. He coughed blood. But the light in his chest kept glowing. He heard a voice again. Faint, but real. Dad, please don't give up. Liam. He was watching. Maybe from a prison cell. Maybe from some frozen pod. But he was alive. And he still believed in his father. That belief was power. Ethan stood again, slower this time, but not broken. He placed his hand on the ground. His device glowed, and suddenly, the arena responded. Zorak stepped back. No, that's impossible. The rocks began to float higher. The suns grew dim. The symbols on the walls lit up in the same color as Ethan's device. This place, Ethan whispered, realizing the truth. It's not yours, Zorak. You didn't build it. The Warlord's face twitched. It belonged to them, the ones you destroyed. Zorak screamed. I come in QERE them. Ethan pointed at him. No, you silenced them, but they left something behind. Me. The energy in the arena reached its peak. The blue glow around Ethan exploded into full armor, like living metal that wrapped around his body. It was elegant, smooth, glowing with light, the true form of the secret weapon. Zorak charged, but this time Ethan didn't dodge. He caught the Warlord's blade, barehanded, and it shattered. Zorak fell to one knee, stunned. The pain in his face wasn't from the broken blade. It was from the truth. For the first time, he wasn't feared. He was beaten. Across the Galaxies, billions of beings were watching. Zorak had broadcasted the dual live across all his conquered worlds. He wanted to humiliate Earth. But now, all those races, slaves, survivors, soldiers, were seeing something different. A human. Standing tall, not kneeling, and winning. Hope began to rise. Across planets, aliens whispered. He refused, and he won. Back to the arena. Zorak coughed and spat purple blood. He looked up at Ethan. You think you've changed anything? Ethan stared at him. Not yet, but this is the start. Suddenly, the arena shook again. But this time, it wasn't Zorak. The ground cracked. The light dimmed. Ethan looked around. What's happening? Zorak laughed weakly. You activated the ancient systems, but you don't know the cost. A screen opened in the sky. A new face appeared. It was not Zorak. It was someone else. Someone worse. A woman, tall, shadowed, with silver eyes and a cold smile. Well done, human, she said softly. You passed the test. Ethan's heart froze. Zorak's eyes widened in fear. You woke her. The mysterious woman smiled. Hello, child of Earth. I am the Queen of Shadows. And you have caught my attention. Arena of Suns. Ethan stood in silence, his body still glowing with the alien armor wrapped around him. His breath was heavy. His heart pounded, but it wasn't from fear. It was from something deeper. She was here. The mysterious woman's face hovered in the air like a ghost. Tall, cold, and powerful. Her silver eyes looked straight into his soul. The light around her seemed to drain the warmth from the stars themselves. She was no ordinary alien. She was something far older. You have done well, Ethan Cold, she said. But this game was never about Zorak. Zorak, still kneeling and wounded, growled like a cornered beast. You tricked me, he shouted at the screen. You used me to wake her. The woman's eyes turned toward him slowly. You were always a pawn, Zorak, a child playing with fire. Ethan clenched his fists. Who are you? The woman's face smiled, but there was no kindness in it. I am known by many names, but you may call me the Queen of Shadows. Suddenly, the twin suns above the arena flickered. Not just light, but time itself began to bend. Ethan felt the ground shift again, pulling him deeper into the center of the arena. The battlefield cracked, revealing a glowing platform rising from beneath. A new voice whispered through the air, not from the Queen, not from Zorak, but from the arena itself. Chosen one. Final trial. Prepare. Ethan was pulled onto the platform, his armor locked in place. The blue glow turned white-hot. Zorak screamed in protest. No, this was supposed to be my arena. But he was fading. His body collapsed. The once feared warlord of 29 galaxies. Defeated, humiliated, discarded. The Queen's voice returned, softer now. The Arena of Suns was built long before your species, Ethan. It is a forge for champions. And you, human, are the last hope of balance. Beyond the stars, galaxies far away shimmered in silence. Beings of all shapes and sizes tuned in to the transmission. Zorak's battle was meant to be entertainment, a reminder that Earth was weak. But what they saw now was revolution. A single human, standing alone, refusing to kneel, now chosen by ancient power to fight not just a warlord, but something far worse. FLASHBACK, Ethans Sezoan, Liam. Somewhere in a cold, hidden chamber, a young boy opened his eyes. He had been asleep for years, floating in a glass pod, his body untouched by time. Machines beeped softly. Then, the lights changed. Blue. The same blue as his father's energy. Liam smiled faintly. Dad, you found me. He closed his eyes again. But this time, he was dreaming of freedom. Back to the arena. The platform beneath Ethan lifted into the sky. Above him, the two suns now swirled faster. Gravity twisted. Ethan looked down and saw that the arena had changed. It wasn't just a battleground. It was a cosmic engine. Energy flowed from star to stone, charging every surface. A huge doorway appeared in the sky, formed by the alignment of the two suns. The Queen's voice echoed one more time. Step forward, champion. The real test begins. Ethan swallowed hard. He thought he had fought his greatest battle. But now he saw the truth. Zorak was the wall. She was the storm. The trial begins. Ethan entered the golden doorway and felt his body pulled into another space. He stood now in a different world. Not a battlefield, but a vision. A realm made of memory and emotion. A place between life and death. He saw Anna, his wife, smiling, alive. Ethan, she whispered. He ran to her, but she vanished. Then he saw Liam, a boy laughing, flying a kite. He reached out, but the wind blew it all away. The Queen appeared again, walking through the visions like they were her garden. This is your weakness, she said. Love, loss, emotion. It breaks warriors. Ethan turned to her, trembling. No, it makes us fight harder. You are alone, she hissed. And I am forever. Her body shifted, growing taller, darker. She turned into smoke and shadow, taking shapes of people Ethan once loved and lost. His parents, his friends, his wife. They all told him to kneel. But Ethan didn't. He stood taller, and he spoke clearly. I will not kneel. Not for fear, not for power, and not for ghosts. The visions shattered. Light exploded from his chest. His armor turned bright gold. The final form. Ethan now hovered in the center of the dream space. His body glowed with pure energy. The lost race, the creators of the tech, spoke through him. The balance must return. The Queen screamed. Her shadows twisted and burned under the golden light. She tried to strike, but her hand passed through Ethan. What are you? She cried. He floated forward, his feet not touching the ground. I am a father. I am a fighter. I am hope. He held up his hand. A pulse of energy exploded from his palm. Not to destroy, but to heal. Every shadow faded. Every voice went silent. The arena of suns turned to pure light. And in that moment, the queen disappeared. Not dead, but banished by a single human's heart. Back on Earth, the sky cleared. Zorak's ship began to fall from orbit, but not crash. It landed softly, as if guided by unseen hands. The war machine shut down. Alien soldiers across the planet dropped their weapons, confused and afraid. People cheered, not because of guns or armies, but because one man refused to kneel. Ethan's reward. Ethan woke up on solid ground. His armor faded. His body was weak. But in front of him stood Liam. Older now, but alive. Dad. Ethan dropped to his knees, not in surrender, but in tears. He hugged his son. The war was over, and Earth was free. The lie behind the throne. The sky was finally quiet. Zorak's ship hovered in stillness above Earth, no longer a symbol of fear. Alien soldiers, once proud and cold, now stood motionless, confused, their weapons powered down. And far below, Ethan Cole held his son in his arms. Tears rolled down his face as he whispered, "I found you, Liam. I found you." Liam nodded, his voice shaky. "I knew you'd come, Dad. I never gave up." Their reunion was silent for a moment. No words could explain the years they had lost. No sentence could carry the pain or the love between them. But something wasn't right. Ethan's armor buzzed again, faintly. The glow returned, not in celebration, but in mourning. He looked up. The arena of suns, once glowing bright, now cracked. The energy was not calming. It was growing unstable. Something is wrong. Liam looked around. "What's happening?" Ethan stood, holding his son's hand. "I don't know, but it's not over." Suddenly, from the edge of the arena, a new voice whispered, low, broken, and filled with bitterness. "You think you've won, but you only finished the first chapter." Ethan turned. Zorak was still alive. Barely. He was crawling from the edge of the platform, half burned, his armor torn. His yellow eyes glowed weakly, but his voice carried rage. "You fool. The queen wasn't the enemy. She was the gatekeeper." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" Zorak coughed, blood pouring from his mouth. "She ruled the shadows. But there is something worse. Something ancient, trapped behind the throne she sat on." The arena rumbled again. A huge crack split the sky, and behind it, something stirred. The gate beneath the throne. In the center of the arena, where the queen once stood, the stone crumbled, revealing a pit that pulsed with darkness. The air turned cold. The stars above flickered. The ground itself bent as if space was being pulled inward. Liam grabbed Ethan's arm. "Dad, what is that?" Ethan stared into the black pit. He didn't know the name, but he knew the feeling. Evil. Pure, unending, timeless evil. His armor flared again. Images flashed in his mind. Not just memories, but warnings. He saw worlds swallowed by shadow. Cities crumbling. Galaxies screaming. It was not Zorak who destroyed those places. It was something deeper. Zorak, barely standing, spoke again. "The queen sat on a throne made of lies. She promised power. But the truth is, she was just a servant. The real king is still locked away." Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then why did she test me?" Zorak gave a weak smile. "To see if you were strong enough to open the door." The twisted truth. Ethan fell silent. Everything made sense now. The battle. The visions. The dream world. The challenge wasn't to defeat the queen. It was to awaken the real threat. He had been played. Used. Not by Zorak, but by the unseen force behind everything. He turned to Liam. We need to go. Now. But it was too late. The gate beneath the throne cracked open, and a voice escaped, a sound so deep and slow that it made the stars tremble. Finally, from the shadows rose a hand, giant, made of stone and bone, wrapped in chains that cracked with every movement. The queen's throne had not been a symbol of rule. It had been a lock, and Ethan had unknowingly become the key. FLASHBAC key, the Lost Racy. Ethan's device glowed again. The alien intelligence inside his armor spoke, not with sound, but with memory. He saw a different world, a beautiful planet made of crystal and rivers of light. The creators of his tech, the peaceful race, had lived there. They built wonders, loved music, hated war. But they made a mistake. They tried to contain a force they didn't understand. They built the Arena of Suns not for sport, but as a prison. The throne was their final defense. The Queen of Shadows had once been one of them, before she was corrupted. She had volunteered to sit upon the throne, knowing the truth. But over time, she too became a puppet of the thing she once guarded. Ethan's armor pulsed with fear. The lost race had left one message for the future. If our prison ever breaks, do not fight it. Seal it. Sacrifice. Only love can close the gate. Back to the moment. Ethan stood still as the monstrous figure rose from the pit. The sky turned blood red. The sun cracked in half. Alien soldiers began to scream in terror. Zorik crawled away, laughing. You didn't win, human. You only opened the door. Ethan turned to Liam. And in that moment, he knew. This fight wasn't about weapons. It wasn't about strength. It was about choice. Sacrifice. Ethan kneeled down, held Liam's face, and said, I need you to listen carefully. Liam shook his head. No, Dad, don't say goodbye. I'm not saying goodbye. Ethan smiled. I'm saying, you're ready. Liam's own hand began to glow. The device had chosen him too. The armor had begun to transfer. You carry my light now, Ethan whispered. But this part, I must do alone. The last movie. Ethan stepped forward as the monster rose fully from the pit. He didn't shout. He didn't run. He just opened his arms. You want power, he said. Then take mine. His armor exploded with golden light. A beam shot into the sky, through the arena, the gate, the stars. Everything froze. And then, silence. The hand of the monster stopped moving. The gate slammed shut. The throne crumbled into dust. And Ethan was gone. The Nihu Hopi. Liam fell to his knees, crying. But the light remained in his chest. He looked up at the stars. Dad didn't kneel, he whispered. He rose. And somewhere in the galaxy, people felt it. The throne was broken. The prison was sealed. And the name Ethan Cole became more than just human. It became legend. The Queen of Shadows. For a long moment, there was only silence. No war cries, no explosions, no fear. The Arena of Suns, once a place of battles, fire, and blood, now floated quietly in the heart of space. Its stones were cracked, its symbols faded. The suns that circled it had dimmed, as if bowing in sorrow. Ethan Cole was gone, but his light remained. It pulsed inside his sun. Liam stood alone at the center of the arena, still glowing faintly. His young face was wet with tears. His heart felt heavy, but also strong. His father's final words echoed in his ears. You carry my light now. And though Liam was just a boy, he was no longer helpless. The Galaxies, Liastians, across the stars, beings from distant worlds watched in silence. Millions had tuned in expecting to witness Earth's fall. Instead, they saw a mechanic, a human with no army, no crown, no ship, stand against the strongest warlord and a queen of darkness, and win. They watched a father sacrifice himself to protect his son. They saw hope. And hope is dangerous to those who rule by fear. In the dark corners of Galaxies, rebellions whispered Ethan's name. He didn't kneel. He burned the throne, the human made of light. But not everyone was happy. Far away, in a hidden void beyond the reach of light, something watched. The return of the HFY Queen. She did not die. The Queen of Shadows, torn from her throne and banished by Ethan's sacrifice, drifted through the empty void of space. Her form was cracked and weak. Her silver eyes dimmed. The shadows that once danced at her feet were gone. But her mind still burned with rage. He gave everything, and still won, she whispered. She had ruled for thousands of years. She had crushed worlds without lifting a finger. But one human, one father, had undone it all with light, love, and sacrifice. And now, she wanted it back. Earth rebuilt. Weeks passed. Zorak's army had surrendered. Earth began to heal. The skies were clear, the threat gone. But the scars remained. In cities around the world, statues of Ethan Cole were built, not of a warrior with a sword, but of a man holding his son's hand, a symbol of quiet courage. And Liam lived in peace. He was taken in by scientists and world leaders, but he didn't want attention. He stayed in a small house by the hills, where his father once lived. The device still glowed on his wrist, like a sleeping star, but every night he dreamed of the Queen. He saw her falling, then rising, her eyes filled with revenge. Asignal in the dark. One morning, Liam woke up with a headache. The device on his wrist was blinking red for the first time. He tapped it. A projection appeared. Unknown signal detected. Ancient code. Activating defense. Suddenly, the sky turned black. The sun flickered. Alarms screamed across Earth. A rift had opened in space, right above the planet. From the tear came a whisper. The light is gone. The shadow returns. Ships darker than night poured out, but they were not like Zorak's machines. These were alive. They slithered and howled, feeding on energy. And in the center, she returned. The Queen of Shadows changed. No longer beautiful or still. She was broken, wild, and terrifying. "Bring me the boy," she ordered. "The Sonnen of Light." Liam stood on the roof of his house, watching the sky darken. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He raised his wrist and spoke. "I'm not my father, but I'm not afraid either." The device responded, glowing brighter than ever. A new voice whispered inside his mind, one he hadn't heard since the day of the battle. "Liam." He froze. "Dad?" Ethan's voice was faint, but real. "This isn't your fight, son, but you're not alone." A flash of blue light shot into the sky. The device transformed, spreading into new armor. Smaller than Ethan's, but fast. Light as air, it wrapped around Liam like a second skin. And inside it, the memories of his father lived on. The Enidu battle begins. The Queen's forces began to fall from the sky, crashing into Earth's oceans and cities. But this time, Earth had something it never had before. A leader born of light. Liam led rescue teams, fought off shadow beasts, and activated long-hidden alien tech that his father had left behind. His mind was sharp, his courage unshaken. But deep inside, he feared one thing. What if he wasn't enough? What if he failed like the heroes in old stories? But every time he doubted, he heard his dad's voice again. "You don't have to win alone, son. You just have to stand." A final message. As the Queen's army gathered around Earth, preparing for full destruction, Liam found a hidden message inside the device, a final recording from Ethan. "If you're seeing this, it means I'm gone, but not truly. I'm inside this light, inside you. The Queen wants control. She fears choice. But you, Liam, you're the choice. End this, not with hate, but with heart. Liam watched the message as the sky cracked again. The queen was descending, and this time she wanted more than power. She wanted revenge. The last stand. The sky above Earth had turned black once again. But this time, it wasn't fear that filled the hearts of humanity. It was hope. Hope carried by a boy, Liam Cole, the son of the man who had refused to kneel. The son of Ethan Cole, the human who had brought warlords to their knees and torn down a throne built of shadows. Now, it was Liam's turn to face the darkness. The descent of the Queen. From the tear in space, the Queen of Shadows returned. But she was no longer calm, no longer graceful. Her body was twisted by hatred. Her once silver eyes now burned red. Her voice echoed across the planet like a hurricane made of sorrow and rage. I gave him a choice. He chose to burn. Now, I will take everything. Her living ships rained down over cities. Shadow beasts crawled from craters. They absorbed light. They infected the minds of soldiers. Whole regions fell silent as darkness spread like spilled ink. She wasn't just attacking Earth. She wanted to erase Ethan's legacy. The boy who stood alone. Liam stood at the peak of the old arena of suns, which now floated over Earth like a broken moon. The armor his father once wore now formed around him. Sleeker, quicker, more connected. He was younger, smaller, but not weaker. All around him, lights flickered, alien tech, awakened by his presence. Then, they began to rise. Ships, not of war, but of peace. The lost creators of the armor had hidden their last fleet, deep in space. Ethan's sacrifice had sent out a signal. And Liam's heartbeat, full of purpose, was the answer. Ethan's final gift. From the heart of the arena, a final energy source began to glow. A memory, recorded in light, played before Liam like a dream. It was his father, smiling. No armor, no war, just a man, a father. Liam, you were never meant to fight this battle alone. But if you ever had to, I wanted you to know that the strongest power isn't in weapons. It's in choice, in love, in standing back up, even if your knees shake. Liam touched the glowing memory. I miss you, Dad. The world unites. As the Queen's armies moved across the sky, Liam opened a signal to every country, every language, every living being on Earth. His face appeared in the clouds, not with a crown, but with a calm voice. I'm not a hero. I'm just a kid who lost his dad. But he taught me one thing. If one person stands, others will too. Across cities, soldiers raised their heads. Civilians helped each other up. Old enemies became allies. And one by one, Earth stood. The final confrontation. The Queen arrived at the arena of suns, now cracked and glowing again with ancient energy. She hovered, her wings of shadow stretching across the sky. You are nothing, boy. I'm not nothing, Liam said. I'm his son. She charged. The sky exploded. Liam dodged fast, his armor responding like it was alive. He flew through space debris, fired beams of light, and deflected her shadows with energy shields. But the Queen was powerful. Too powerful. Each hit sent Liam flying. Each strike drained more light. She smiled coldly. You cannot beat me. I am eternal. Liam, weak and bruised, stood again. You're not eternal. You're alone. The power of NEMOI. Suddenly, the device on Liam's wrist pulsed. But it wasn't just energy, it was emotion. Memories flooded his vision. His mother's laughter. His father fixing an engine with greasy hands. The night sky over Arizona. Ethan kneeling, not in surrender, but to tie his son's shoes. All the small human things. The things the Queen would never understand. And then, a final whisper in his mind. I'm proud of you, son. The light exploded from Liam's chest, not as a weapon, but as a wave. It raced across the arena. The queen screamed. Her body cracked. Not from pain, but from remembrance. She saw her own past. She had once been light too, before power twisted her. Tears fell from her burning eyes as her form faded. What have you done? I didn't destroy you, Liam said softly. I reminded you who you were. The end of the shadows. The queen vanished into stars. Her ships turned to dust. The shadows lifted. And peace, real peace, returned. ANEWLAJC. Liam returned to Earth. He didn't claim a throne. He didn't want medals or monuments. He rebuilt his father's workshop. He helped his neighbors fix their homes. And when people came to see the boy who saved the world, he only said, I'm just Ethan's son, and I stand, because he did. The HFY. Years passed. A new star appeared in the sky. It glowed brighter than any other. People called it the Star of the Lightbringer. And in schools across the galaxy, children learned about the mechanic who refused to kneel. Not because he had power, but because he had love. And through his son, that love never died. The end.